Hello there, and welcome to this session solving tactics on chesstempo.com, the advocate. This session is 1700 to 1800 mixed, 1700, 1800. So if your rating is, maybe 1600, maybe 1900, this video should help you out. Mixed means we get defensive tactics as well as, tactics that win material. Let's go ahead and get started. You should pause this video right now, probably, and try to solve the tactic yourself. So if I could get rid of this knight, queen takes h3 would be mate. But I don't see how to do that. Maybe I can do it this way. Knight check, king h2, knight check. And if rook takes, or rather if rook doesn't take, I'm going to have queen check, pawn takes. Well, rook takes is forced, isn't it? Knight check, king h2, knight check, and if king h1, I'll have queen h3, checkmate. Pawn takes, rook check, knight takes, rook check is mate. So knight check, king h2, knight check, rook takes is forced. Then I'll have rook check, king h2. Knight check, king h2. Come on, I'm so close to figuring it out. Knight check, king h2, knight check. Rook takes f1 forced. Rook takes f1 check. King h2. Rook takes check. King takes g2. Queen f2 checkmate. Knight check, king h2 forced. Knight f2 check. Rook takes forced. Oh, wait. Then rook check. King h1, queen takes checkmate. Knight check, king h2, forced, knight f2 check, rook takes, and then not rook takes f1, but rook takes g2 check. King h1, queen check, knight h2, queen check is mate. So check, check. Oh, and then this one is checkmate here. That was the first line that I calculated. And the second line that I calculated was this. Yep. It was actually easier for me to see the queen sacrifice than it was for me to see the other line. Most common mistake made, rook takes g2. Most common mistake, rook takes g2, knight takes, rook checkmate. So obviously he doesn't take. Play this. And I'm not certain what the planned follow-up is. This is not hanging. So yeah, I'm not certain what rook takes g2 is supposed to be leading to, but it just doesn't work. Queen g4 check, king h8. Rook e3, queen d1, checkmate. Rook e1, queen takes e1, checkmate. Knight d7, rook takes d7, queen takes d7, down a piece. Sad. Queen check, king h8, queen c8, repetition. Queen g4 check, king g7, queen c8 check, repetition. Queen check, king h8, queen back to c8, king g8, queen g4 check, repetition. Black's defense is just too strong, you can't break through. Mistakes made, knight d7. Yeah, so the problem with knight d7 is that you have rook takes d7, queen takes d7, and now it's rook and bishop against rook. Black will pick up here. So you're down 2 pawns. No, you're down a pawn. You're down a pawn and a piece. Nigel's short with the white pieces. So knight takes here, threatening queen takes h6 checkmates. He has queen f6. Two rooks and a bishop. So I'm currently down the exchange. So rook g7, king takes g7, knight f5 check. King f6. Knight takes e7, rook takes e7. And then it's 2 rooks and a bishop against a queen and a bishop. Not exactly the best odds. Is there some way that I could deliver mate instead? Rook check, king here, knight check. Let's say king f6, queen takes check. King takes f5, bishop c2 check. Bishop c2 check. e4. I don't see a good continuation after e4. So knight takes queen f6 or queen d6, covering h6. Also threatening rook g7. So queen f6 is probably the only way to cover everything. What about knight g4? Threatening f6, threatening this. F takes g4, and I have nothing. Knight takes f4 seems like the most natural move. What about queen takes check? Queen takes check, king h8. Queen takes check, king h8. Then what can I do? Queen check, king h8. Bishop c2. f6. Queen h5. f6, queen g6. Rook f7. Queen takes h6, rook h7. No. Hmm. Rook check, king. Knight check. King here. Rook check, king. Knight check. King f6. Queen check. King takes f4. g4 check. g4 check. King e4. Queen takes e3. Queen e3 checkmate. Is that it? Rook check. King takes. Knight check. King f6. Queen check. Queen check. King takes f5. g4 check. King e4. Queen e3. Checkmate. Bishop covers here. Pawn covers here. The queen delivers a mate. Yeah, so it's just like one of those full contact mates. Queen check. g4 check. Checkmate. Alternate checkmates. g4. Okay. This is going to be a short session today. I got to go to work. Uh, so if bishop check, rook takes, queen takes, pawn takes, rook takes, king takes, that's just equality. There's rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, queen takes, and then there's rook takes. So there's rook takes, rook takes, double check. Rook takes, bishop takes check. Rook takes, this rook takes. I have queen takes for free. And rook takes, this rook takes. Rook takes, this rook takes. I'll have rook takes again. Queen takes. So wait, rook takes. If this rook takes, I take the queen for free. So rook takes, rook f7. Rook f takes f6 is forced. Rook f takes. Rook takes, rook f takes. Queen f5. Queen takes c3. Rook takes, wait, rook takes, rook f takes, queen a7 check. Rook takes, rook f takes, queen a7 check. King g6. Or rook takes, this rook takes, queen takes, pawn takes, rook takes, c6. Wait, so rook takes. I'm wondering now if I can just go queen. Rook takes, rook takes, rook takes. Rook takes, rook takes, rook takes. And at this point, queen takes c5, pawn takes c5, rook takes f6, c6, king f7, bishop takes f6, king takes f6, c7, c6, c7. So rook takes, rook takes, rook takes. Rook takes, rook takes, rook takes. Queen takes, pawn takes, rook takes. c6, king f7, bishop takes f6, king takes f6, c7, king e7, c8 queens. Yep. It's exactly the line that I calculated. And it's just recognizing that the c-pawn queens. And the alternate line just loses the queen outright because of the pin. So you have to choose between losing the rook or being down the full piece. Maybe more exact, actually, in this position is not to move in with the king, but to play g4. Yeah. g4, b3, king g2, b2, c8 queens, just to move the king away. Bishop takes, king d7, then bishop g7. And I do control the h8 square. So it's not a wrong-colored bishop endgame. Let's just do one more problem. I believe I've done this problem before. Yeah, I'm very certain I've done this problem before. The answer is knight takes f1. So the line goes knight takes f1, f8 queens, queen takes. It's difficult to remember the actual reason why. So if queen takes here, f8 queens. If queen takes here, f8 queens, queen takes. Rook takes check, king d. Rook takes, king takes, and that's equality. Bishop and knight against bishop and knight. And after king takes c, there's pawn takes d5. So 3 pawns, 2 pawns, 2 pawns, 1 pawn. 3 against 3. So bishop takes leads to equality. But there's one critical line that goes knight takes f1, f8 queens, queen takes, knight e6 check, king e7. And he doesn't actually have time to take on f8s, because if he takes on f8, I take on h4. And if he moves the queen away, I'm going to capture the knight. And if he moves, like let's say queen e1, there's queen h8 check. Queen h8 check, king g2, queen h2 check, king f1, queen h1 check, king e2 or king f2, and then queen takes e1. And I'm skewering the king and the queen, so I'll get the queens off of the board and I'll be up the exchange. Yep, and here you lose the knight, or you lose the bishop, rather. No, I remember that this was not the most exact. You need to come to f6, That way after knight takes, there's knight here. Because if you go with the king to the d pawn, knight takes, then there's this fork here. White to move. d7. d7, rook h8, knight b7. Seems simple enough. d7. The only way to stop the pawn is rook h8. Then knight b7, king e7, d8 queens, rook takes d8, knight takes d8, king takes d8, king g4. Winning. Wait, why didn't I think of that? I mean, king g4 should still be fine. So knight e7, or knight e4, and king takes d7, knight check, knight e4. How about knight e6, threatening d8 and knight f8? And if king takes d8 queens, and if king takes there, if king takes knight, d8 queens, and if king takes pawn, f8 check. Okay, that's it for me today. Mistakes made in this position, knight e4 check. Knight e4 check, king e6, knight check wins the rook. So knight e4 check, king e5, and if knight takes, rook d7, knight here. White should be doing fine here. So knight e4 check, king here, knight takes, rook g6, h4, king takes, for example. Maybe it's not so easy. King g4, king e7. White should still win, I believe. Okay, alright, that's it for today's session. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned as much as I did. Another good session for the 1700 to 1800 bracket. Let's say that I do one more session of this quality, and then I'll go ahead and move up to 1800 to 1900. So thank you so much for watching that, and until the next time, good luck with your chess journey. Bye-bye for now.